Hi, if you don't know me, I'm Mike Cantwell. For my sins, Bob and Nancy asked me to take over as president. So we have one housekeeping thing to do first, which I'd like to just get out of the way because I forgot to do it last time. And that is to be in compliance with the bylaws of the Florida Democratic Party. All clubs are removing from the bylaws the phrase physical disability. So it's just disability. That happens twice in Article 11, Clause 1 and Clause 2. So,
you want your copy of the bylaws?
Yeah. So if you're a member, raise your hand. So okay. All right, so all in favor of amending the bylaws to be in compliance? It's passed. Okay. We have two speakers tonight, Karen Brill and Rita Solnet. We have DeAndre Poole, who just stepped down as vice chair of the Palm Beach County Democratic Party, and Ryan Rossi, who's vice president of the Boca Del Rey Club. And they each have an announcement. So, DeAndre, you want to come up and then we can get started.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right. This is all new for me. It's all new. I tell you, I'm putting on a suit, making sure it's straight. I have to make sure I look the part. But seriously, I wanted to speak from my heart. And, you know, as I think about what I'm going to say to this club, what I want to say to that club, I just want to speak from my heart and just tell you a little bit about myself. It was not an easy decision to say, okay, well, I'm going to leave the DC to run for supervisor elections. Most people have said, are you crazy? Why would you want that job? You're going to have a target on your back. And are you going to raise the money? But you know what I said? I said, the money will come. And I said, yes, I am crazy. Because I don't want to look back 20 years from now and say, why didn't I run? Why didn't I offer myself to the voters of Palm Beach County? And I don't want to look back and say I shouldn't have did that. Ryan knows. Ryan ran for office as well. And Ryan's going to run.
The money never came.
And Ryan, that's all right. But you ran.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And it's a big decision to step out there and to put yourself on the line, to be scrutinized. But you know what? At the end of the day, public is worth it to know that if you want to put yourself on the line to serve people, any elected official will know. Karen Brill will know that it's very rewarding. There are good days and bad days. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a native of West Palm Beach, born and raised, educated in the Palm Beach County school system, graduated of Suncoast High School, that's right. Class of 99, I'm telling you my age. And I have 2 degrees from Florida Atlantic University, and I went away to Howard University where I earned my doctorate. And then I came back. So even as a kid, I knew that I wanted to be engaged in public service, be it the nonprofit world or education, because my teachers were very influential in my life. And so here I am today. Even as a kid, I said, you know, I'm going to run for mayor one day. We haven't did that yet. I don't think I'll run for mayor, but anyway. But no, I said I want to be engaged in some form of public service, be it running for office, be it serving in the capacity of a community organizer, helping people build power. And professionally, I teach at FAU. And one of my favorite courses I teach is communication, democracy, and civic engagement. So as a professor, I cannot just tell my students what they should do, run for office, start an organization to help build power in your community. I have to lead by example. So I made the decision about 2 months ago. I said, you know, I've been active with the Democratic Party for close to 10 years, since 2012. So I said, it's time. It's time for me to offer myself to the people of Palm Beach County. And one of the things, a couple of things that led me to this decision to run for supervisor, voter suppression is real. It's happening all across this country. And who are the people who are most impacted? The people who are most impacted are people of color, millennials, okay, and our seniors. I think about that bus of seniors at the community center in Georgia that were loaded up on the charter bus, go to the polls to vote, and they were going to support who? Stacey Abrams. And then the voting place got word of it, the supervisor got word of it, or the secretary of state, whoever, sent the police to stop that bus, to stop these people from carrying out their constitutional right. And I think about them and so many other people across this country who have fought and died for the right to vote. So my position is this: I'm running to make sure that we have an office that is responsive to the voters in this county, to restore integrity, and to make sure that everybody's vote is counted. All right, we need somebody in that office that we can trust, and somebody that is a people person. I love people. There's nothing wrong with engaging with people. All right, some people have a problem with that, but I genuinely like people and care about people. And you will have a responsive supervisor, someone that will make this a regular part of the job, speaking to their constituents all across this county. And as my wife, of course, I had to take some convincing to allow me to do this, but she's on board. So I just want to say for the time being that, again, I hope I have your support. I do know that, well, I'm not going to talk about other people. I'm the right man for the job, okay? So tell your friends, tell your loved ones, your relatives. I'm also collecting checks as well. But seriously, I'm in it to win it. I'm in it because I have a compassion, I have a heart for people, and I'm in it because I have the skill set and the mindset to do the job and to do it well. Thank you.
Ryan, you want to come up? You know, as you were saying, DeAndre, the Republicans not only don't like Democrats, they don't like democracy. They don't, because if you have a democracy, they're going to lose. They have to suppress votes. Otherwise, they lose the election.
Look what they did to Susan Booker.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And so by the way, folks, Karen Ansa, she has in her possession petitions. In order for DeAndre to officially get on the ballot, we need many petition signatures throughout Palm Beach County, and we're going to work at it, one club, one town, one street, one precinct at a time. Hopefully, all of you will at least help DeAndre to get on the ballot by signing a petition this evening. So thank you for that. And yes, thank you very much. Please make sure. It will be marked by DeAndre himself. So the section where it looks for marking, please avoid that.
No, it should be nonpartisan.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm up to speed. Yes. Thank you very much. So yes, please mark it nonpartisan.
Yeah, nonpartisan, yeah.
Good evening, folks. Good evening. The nice thing about not being a can anymore is I don't have to wear a suit, so I can looking like this. But like DeAndre said, many of you may recall, actually we had a debate here. I ran for State House 89 last year, and of course Mindy Cope and Corinne Miller would not let me take a break, so now I am the vice president of the Boca del Rey Club. You are a cousin club to the south, and I'm here to extend an invitation because this is important. We are in an election year coming up, and we've got a lot of great candidates, and the first opportunity to see all of them together is on June 26th and 27th. It's divided into two debates, and the Boca del Rey Club is put together an event for us to have a watch party for that event, and I think it's going to be great. And we'll have some food and drinks available for purchase. It says free to all Democrats, so you don't have to worry about paying. And you can RSVP here. So I'm going to go ahead and pass these out, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to come together and watch the Democrats in action and have some commentary and spend some time in fellowship and see what candidate is going to come out of this thing on top. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm going to pass these out. If you have any questions, call the number or email us and let us know if you'll be coming. Please come, otherwise I'll get fired. You don't want Mindy Coke on your bad side, as I've learned. So we're making sure that we make the round and get there. And thank you very much for letting me spend a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay. And you're gonna keep the long knives out in the cupboard at the meeting,
Yes,
right?
there'll be no
Because we have, on the back of the newsletter, I don't know how many people are familiar with the indivisible pledge. What we have to avoid this year is, every single candidate we have is head and shoulders above Trump, above any Republican that has walked the earth in the last 40 years. So, what we don't want to see happen is ads with one Democrat attacking another being broadcast by Trump in the general election. So, okay, our speakers tonight. Sure.
Okay, this was Democratic Progressive meeting. This is from Democracy for America. Oh, Democracy for America. And we're planning a march against Monsanto. We've been doing it 5 years or more. We've always done it down in West Palm. And this year we've decided to do it at Old School Square. And so we need to publicize it to people in our district. And if you all could put it on your emails to all your friends, we'd like to get a crowd out. It's going to be at Old School Square, and I don't know what the route will be yet. But it's at May 18th at 4 o'clock. And it's going to be done all over the United States. It's not just all over the world. And so we're partaking on that day. I'm going to pass these out to everyone.
Okay, we'll post it on our Facebook page for the 10 or 12 people that look at it. Arlene, you got an announcement?
No, I want to just add something, sorry. Just today, I found out that a bunch of us from the League of Women Voters volunteered to go to the U.S. courthouse. We go to register newly naturalized people. We have events planned already, and they got canceled. Why? Because we now have to give 2 months' notice, and those people that are going have to register or something, or do something like that. So the suppression, Deandra has continues, even today.
Okay, so, Karen Brill, school board member, District 3, she's spoken to us before. And you'll introduce Rita? Okay, very good.
So I see there are people here that I don't know, that don't know me, so I'm just going to start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I am the school board member for District 3, which is west of Military Trail, starts up around Lake Worth and goes down to Clintmore and Boca Raton. I've been on the school board now, this is my 3rd term. I am not an educator. I joined the school board because I have a son with autism, who it's hard to believe is going to be 30 this year. But when I went to enroll him in school years ago, they said, I'm sorry, we don't take kids like him. So long story short, he got a standard diploma. One of my missions on the school board was to get us to include kids with disabilities in the classroom with proper supports, get them to graduate, and now I've quietly, with the superintendent, started a program because we have an initiative to hire our graduates, and I said, why aren't we hiring our graduates with disabilities? So we started a program. We just recently had our first student who's a son of one of our police officers, who's now working in maintenance and absolutely loving it. My son happens to work for the school district, but it took him 4 years to get the job. He worked at Bethesda Hospital. And I said, if my son could do it, he works at Atlantic High School, there's no reason why we can't hire these students. So I'm saying all of this as a preface to the fact that you might notice my name badge. Mary Lou Berger, our county commissioner out in the western area, is term limited. Her term is up in 2020. And now that we're graduating our students and they're working, one of my sub-agenda items is I want to get housing, affordable housing for our adults with disabilities, because we have nothing here in Palm Beach County and mostly in the state. So aside with, in the future, I'll be talking about my other priorities, but I'm a realtor. I'm a resident of almost 30 years in my district, and so I want to take my advocacy to the next level, and then after that retire, and just be involved with the League of Women Voters. So that's a little bit about me. Now, I just want to tell you that this has been a horrible year. You're going to hear the bad, the worst, the ugliest from Rita. But I will tell you that we had a couple of big issues. One of them you heard a lot about. There was a rally of over 300 teachers and people who were involved with education. And I have to tell you, the person behind the scenes that organized that was Rita Solnet. So she did an amazing job. Yes, let's give her a round of applause, because if it wasn't for Rita and wasn't for that rally and for all the advocacy, and she worked on the call to action, a lot of you received it through the DEC and through your own clubs, but if it wasn't for that, I fear that we would have been forced to share, we would have had to sue, but we would have been forced to possibly share in our referendum money. So the good news is that that did not go into the bill. We do not have to share that money, which saves us around $20 million, but it's for now. 4 years from now, if we go out for another referendum, because we'll have to renew it, unless the legislation changes, we're gonna have to share it. And what is that paid for? That referendum, as you know, paid for the retention bonuses for teachers, but also art, music, PE, teachers, right? It also was the mental health personnel that we're putting in all the schools, and our school police officers. So we're in dire straits. Your school board's gonna start working on that right away, so that was a big deal. The other thing I'll mention before Rita comes up is that you're going to hear that they did pass the bill for teachers to be armed, but in Palm Beach County, that's not going to happen. We are never arming your teachers, okay? Just so you know, we have school police. They're going to be the only ones that carry guns on our school campuses, period. And so they're never going to be able to force us to do that. Another thing I just wanted to tell you, I did quick research before I came here. A lot of people say to me, you know, why is education so poor in the state of Florida? And I have to tell you, the Palm Beach County School District, we're putting out some superb graduates, and we're really doing well. When I look at my school district in New York, I went to East Ramapo. If any of you have heard about what happened up there, the Hasidim took over the school system and robbed all the money out of it. So we're doing fantastic. But I want you to know what we get per student here in Palm Beach County and in Florida. So currently, we get from the state per student $7,847 and change, okay? Now, what does that equate to in other places? Well, I looked up New York City, and New York City right now is getting $17,500, so it's a $10,000 difference. Now, I don't understand the disconnect, but I found that in 2015, New York State was giving $21,206. I've heard it's closer now to $30,000. Across the state. I don't know what the disconnect is between the city and the state. I can't account for that. But you'll hear some people saying on the Republican side, oh, this has been a wonderful year for education. Well, you're going to hear, no, it hasn't. And in fact, we've only gone up to $7,992. So that's from $7,847. So did we win? No. You're going to hear that there are voucher programs in place now to pay for parochial schools and private schools. And so I'm going to do a little intro. I hope I say this correctly, but one of the ways that I met Rita was when she was involved with Testing is Not Teaching, that whole movement that we had in our school district, which helped us to get rid of a horrible program that we had. And she also is the founder of Parents Across America, which is a huge advocacy organization across the country. And she is our local lobbyist. She's our boots on the ground throughout Palm Beach County. I don't know how we could do it without her. She's been working with some of our representatives, like Tina Polsky, on writing bills, and she is one of our Palm Beach gems. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Rita Solnet.
I'm gonna put this down. Thank you. So I left, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I left Tallahassee, which was supposed to be May 3rd, was supposed to be the end, which also was my birthday. So I had tickets to go where though? To Washington DC. So I kind of went from the frying pan into the fire. So my voice is like totally gone because I guess I've just been yelling at either hearings or at the television screen. So yeah, I'm going to tell you a few things. One thing I do want to mention, thank you very much, Karen, for that introduction. When Karen said that rally made a difference, all of you truly, truly made a difference. And the reason I know this is because the GOP Senate, their aides were running around. See, what we did was we invited all the press and they all came. But I said, this isn't going to do us any good, and we needed to move quickly. So I live streamed it to the Tallahassee Democrat, because I knew that newspaper, that they all watch that. They look at the local news. So that night, the GOP Senate saw what was going on. And actually, the police said it was probably like 450 people. There were a lot. We had a lot of people, a lot of great speakers. And what a couple of the aides said to me is that the senators were running around the hallway saying, did you see that energy in Palm Beach County? I don't want that in my backyard. Okay, we need to yank that language out. You know, like, let's get real here. So, and Miami-Dade, by the way, owes us a great big thank you, because Miami-Dade was really, they were actually looking at taking the language out for all 20 districts but Miami-Dade, so they finally just took the language out. So whenever you say to yourself, did that letter really, by the way, we sent in 23,000 letters and over 40,000 phone calls. We used a tool that goes all through the state. But we acted quickly, and I'm so proud of Palm Beach County Superintendent, and our school board truly is the best school board, I'd say, in the nation, but definitely Florida. So thank you for taking action. They didn't, you know, a lot of other people are very afraid right now. They're being threatened. They're literally getting phone calls from charter school lobbyists saying, you know, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to run somebody against you. So a lot of them, if you're wondering, if you watched any of these hearings, I know the first few weeks I'm saying, okay guys, these are really bad bills going on here, and nobody was speaking. And I started poking around and saying, what's going on? They're really afraid. And I said, what more can they do? You know, you have to speak out, and you were elected to represent your people. And whether some superintendents are elected, some are chosen. So some of the superintendents, and ours certainly did, he spoke up. So we have a very brave school board. Okay, so let me tell you what, in order to tell you what happened and about some of the bills that passed, we need to take a step back and look at who's in charge right now and what happened. We need to look at the big picture. So we have a new governor, right? And this governor made no secrets about the fact that his platform, his whole education platform was, I want vouchers. I want voucher schools for private, you know, vouchers for private and religious schools. That was when I looked up his education platform, that was it. That was the whole platform. So we knew what we were getting. Now we have a new education commissioner. His name is Richard Corcoran, the owner of a charter school, he and his wife. He was the father of two of the worst anti-public school bills when he was in the House, 7069 and 7055. It has to do with charter school authorization, takes a lot of local control away, and that we're in court right now fighting these two bills. This guy is now the Commissioner of Education. We have a new Senate Education Chair, okay? Education Chair decides which bills go on the floor. His name is Manny Diaz, Senator Manny Diaz from Miami. Senator Diaz is, I could say, academica employee. Senator Manny Diaz works for the largest charter school chain in the state of Florida called Academica. how he's allowed to champion bills and sit as chair. He also is the Senate Ed Appropriations Vice Chair. So he decides the money, he decides what bills get voted on. Now we have a new House Education Chair who was homeschooled, and her big push is vouchers also. Her name is Jennifer Sullivan. And she was handpicked by Richard Corcoran. So I take that. Now, when you look at all of that, you can imagine how the year is going to end up. You know, and they made they're very bold, told you directly, looked you in the eye, and said, this is all going to be about charter expansion, voucher expansion, and taking as much money away from public schools and moving it over to what they call choice and competition. Frankly, you know, if they want to continue to do that, that's fine, but it would be nice if they took it from another bucket of money and left 90% of the children, of the K-12 children, are in public schools. 90%. Only 10% are in charters and vouchers. So what are you doing to the 90%? And each year they've been starved and starved and starved of resources, funding. For instance, this year, public schools will get no money for capital outlay, but charter schools will get $158 million. And many of them are brand new buildings, if you'll know. We have aging facilities, so that was just really got to me. Okay, so the stated objective of this legislature was expand charters and vouchers, enhance focus and accountability on school safety. And I would say this wasn't stated, but I think they really did want to strip as much local control, because when you see some of these bills, you'll see that's exactly what they did. And all in all, I would say it was a decent, respectful, kind of a civilized debate on the floor. It wasn't, it got pretty nasty in years past, but you didn't see that. I don't know if some people just felt like it was surreal as to some of these things that were coming forward. What Palm Beach County asked of our legislators was a few things. We want to retain local control, so please help us do that with any bill or any clause or any new thing that they try and throw in at the 11th hour. We want to receive adequate funding for our students and aging facilities. And we'd like, you know, if at all possible, the same rules for all schools. You know, you want to give all this money to charters and vouchers? Voucher schools have, I'm not kidding you when I say this is no exaggeration. There is no accountability when it comes to voucher schools, none. As to how that money is being spent, there's no oversight, we can't. So you could have somebody without a high school diploma teaching children in a voucher school. That's up to them. And when we asked and we tried to put language in that would say, at least have them certified teachers, you know, there's no test, they don't have to test, Florida State test. So we don't know the kind of education that these kids are getting, and it's really sad, but their answer back is, well, the parents can take their money and leave. They could take their kid and their money and leave. Well, how do the parents know if the kids are getting the proper education? You know, especially if a parent's working 2 jobs and they don't know, and if the kid's happy, right? And how many kids aren't happy watching videos all day? You know, so you really don't know, and it's very frightening. We're not even allowed to see their numbers. So we don't know if there's learning gains, there's nothing to compare it to. Charters is a little bit different, but vouchers is really a disaster. There's no, and this year you'll find they put 131 more million, already a $2 billion program in Florida, $2 billion more than any other state in the nation, and only 9 states have voucher schools. Florida, it was written up in the Washington Post, has twice as much money already in it, and they just added another 131 million. Took it right out of the public schools this time. No tax credit voucher this time, it came right out of public schools. So that was pretty upsetting. So there was like First of all, I should tell you, there was 1,861 bills filed, not education. They were all different types of bills. And 195 passed this year. And of that 195, I would say about 30 of them were education bills. So let me just give you an idea. One of the biggest ones was the voucher bill, which was, they called it 7070. This was debated quite a bit. I don't know if you read too much about it in the newspaper, but it was one of those bills that became about over 200 pages. And I'm sure if you've ever watched these hearings, when they add, a clause or they add 2-3 pages, and 15 minutes later, you have to go out on the floor and debate it and fight it, and half the time, nobody knows what's going on, to be honest with you, especially when it's down to the wire. And they get very creative with some of these clauses. So in this bill, they call it a train bill. So here we have a voucher expansion bill, and inside the bill, they put things about public school teacher bonus. Why is that in a voucher bill? It shouldn't be. It should be single topic. They put public school facility per student station, some formula change. They put teacher certification changes in there. All little things. They were like little nuggets of things that public schools would want, but certainly not at to lose $131 million, but they shoved this in there. Anyways, this bill passed and will, in fact, I think the governor signed it today, and he signed it, there's an article out there somewhere, Tampa Bay. He signed it at a school, I think it's called Potter School in Jacksonville, and somebody then posted another article about how bad the school is underneath it. So I guess his staff didn't quite do the thing, like nobody's graduating. It was a bad, his staff really should have looked at that. Let me just tell you about a few other bills. Karen told you about tax bill 7123. Now that was another one where there had some good things in it, like the school tax, August 2nd to August 6th. They'll have the school holiday tax. They also have a hurricane tax that's May 31st to June 6th. So there was some things in there that needed to be passed. But at the last minute, I think it was like 2 weeks before session, they shoved in this clause I guess they thought nobody would read. They said, oh, by the way, anybody who did a referendum for their public schools, which 21 counties did last year, we're going to take that money and share it with charter schools, despite the fact that your language very clearly said, we want this to go to public schools. And in fact, we did polls before we did the ballot that said, I won't vote. We had, like in the 80% range, said, I'm not going to vote for this if you're going to include charter schools. But, so they did that, and I thought, oh my God, they can't, but they passed it. The House passed that language. Then they threw it over to the Senate, and that's when everybody got into action and said, no, we can't have this. That was on its way to be passed. We were literally 3 days away from them passing that. And there was like no feeling about honoring the will of voters. It was just that incredible to me, that they would put retroactive language in it. And even Matt Wilhite was one of the senators that argued, the reps that argued this, along with Tina Polsky, by the way. You have to see the clip of Tina and Matt arguing this. They did a great job. But Matt offered a very simple amendment, and he just said, just take the retroactive language out. We understand you want charters to get this money in the future, just take it out. They considered that a hostile amendment, and they voted it down. And the House literally voted for it, and it was like midnight. And I just remember shaking my head saying, I can't believe they just did this. So that's pretty frightening. But yes, we're going to have to deal with that 3 more years from now. And we may have to deal with it. I think they're going to bring back the sales tax referendum. I think they're going to go after that next time around. So we just need to flip seats is what we need to do. Now here's one that didn't pass. And I guess it just didn't have the steam. It passed in the House, but it died in the Senate. And I don't think I told you about this one, Karen. But we were very concerned about charter schools could open up on college campuses. And we have a very good relationship with local colleges, Palm Beach County School District does. But we're very concerned, you know, if they can pop open charter schools anywhere. Fortunately, it passed in the House, but it did not pass in the Senate. I know this one's coming back. And it only didn't pass because they didn't have time, because they ended up debating some of these other ones so much and spent so much time on it. But I think that one's coming back. They have another one called Schools of Hope. I love this one. So last year they created this thing called Schools of Hope charter schools. So if you have a public school that I think has a D or an F rating for 2 years in a row, I think it was a D or F, then a School of Hope could open up, didn't have to go through the district, could open up near that school. Well, fortunately, we don't have any schools that were D or F 2 years in a row, so we didn't have that problem. And a lot of districts didn't have that problem. So this year, they opened the door even further, and they changed the criteria. So now it can be a C-rated school, and it can be for 2 years, C or lower. What they also did is the federal government has a thing called opportunity zones that the Trump administration put in, so some people are not. So it's for, to boost investment in economically disadvantaged areas, right? So they get tax investments. Well, now, this bill passed where people can come in and open up a charter school in a, quote, opportunity zone. They can completely bypass the school district, go directly to the state and get approved. So that, and I looked at our opportunity zones. We have a lot of them in West Palm, Riviera Beach, a lot of them out in the Glades area. It's very concerning. And there's some in Delray, Lake Worth. So it's concerning. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's some, well, there's a couple of good ones here. Well, this one isn't good, but the Guardian program. The good news is that our superintendent said absolutely, and our board voted, said no, we're not going to do it. The other thing the bill has is a tool in it. It's called a school safety assessment threat, kind of a tool that they mandated. The one thing that I don't like about the bill is it assigns this commissioner of education oversight over every superintendent. So our superintendent works for the people, for the school board who hired him. He has a contract with the school board. I don't understand how the commissioner of education can now write a bill that says, I can and these are the words, I can sanction, penalize, dock his pay, fire, remove, suspend superintendents. But that's in the bill. So I suppose, and everybody's telling me that's in the bill because of Broward. Because, and that's actually, every time I run to somebody else and say, we need to get that out of the bill, excuse me, we don't want this precedent. They say, oh, where are you from, Palm Beach? Don't worry about it. It's not about you, it's about Broward. I said, well, next year it might be about us, okay? And I don't think it's fair for Broward. So that's very concerning that that's in that bill. The other thing, I have to read it again, but the House version didn't clarify whether, and I think it's the House version that passed, didn't clarify whether or not charter schools have to follow this arming teachers bill. I don't believe they do. And that's a little concerning. Now, probably they have to follow some kind of school safety. We have to look at it, but the language was different, and I'm not sure which one passed. The other thing that really struck me is no one was talking about this, but we kept researching. There's not one company that will insure a school district or a school if you're going to have multiple guns on campus with a bunch of kids, and it doesn't matter. So I'm saying there's a huge liability here, and nobody. So I don't even know why they did this. Here's one that failed. No surprise. There was a bill to elect the next Florida Commissioner of Education. That one failed. This one was concerning. It also involved students. It was conversion therapy, and it was to prohibit the practice of trying to change an individual's sexual orientation, right? But it failed. It failed in the House, it failed in the Senate. Another bill was, which I kind of wondered about, but it was called spanking, and it was a bill to ban corporal punishment to be used as discipline. In other words, you know, you can't beat a child or spank a child. That one also failed. We can't ban that. Water filters, this really got to me. So schools built before 1986 in the state of Florida, there was a study done, we must have water filters reinstalled, new ones. That bill failed. So when these people tell me that they're all about kids, I don't want to hear it because let's face it, they run the House, they run the Senate. We're close in the Senate, we have 17 Democrats to 23. So all we ever need is to get 3 to turn over. And that ties it and that defeats the bill. And sometimes we can do that. In the House, it's the numbers are staggering and we can never do it. A couple of others, financial literacy, that bill passed. All high schools must offer financial literacy consisting of a half a credit course. I thought that was a good one. Civics literacy, this one killed me. The Commissioner of Education must review the civics materials. And now we have it in 3 different grades, middle school and in high school. But the Commissioner of Education must review it. He has no education background, I don't understand, but that bill passed. And another bill passed that was an anti-Semitism bill. And what that meant was to treat any incidents of anti-Semitism, to treat it the same that you would racial discrimination. And they wanted to make sure that that was put into a law. So one more thing I'll tell you, Karen touched on it, and that was the budget. So I knew this would happen. I got really frustrated. I said, I can see it now, May 5th, they're gonna come out. The governor has a tremendous PR team. He really does. I give him credit because he's got this marketing team that they know what they're doing. And I just knew he was gonna come out with a headline, this governor gave more to gave more to education than any governor in 20 years. And sure enough, that's what he said. We gave $243 more per pupil. Well, no, that's not the number that he gave. And it's like fuzzy math, because what happened is when you back out the teacher bonus that was previously held in another fund, when you back out this turnaround schools bonus, and when you back out the new voucher program for $131 million, the bottom line is somewhere between $75 and $80 per student. So as Karen said, we only went up $75 or $80 per student. And I suppose we should be jumping up and down for joy, because last year we went up 47 cents. Yeah, 47 cents, and we were supposed to be happy about that. However, on top of this, we didn't get the capital outlay money, and the charter schools did. And if you look at that figure, we still are in 2008. We're not even caught up to inflation with our new enrollments, and so it's pretty pathetic. Right now, we were at 47th in the nation. This is an affluent state, and there's no need for us to rank 47th in the nation in public schools. So I'm sorry to be so filled with gloom and doom here, but the real message is we need to get out and cast the right ballots, and we need to tell everybody we know. And I recently learned that something like 58% of the teachers in the state happen to be Republican. So I don't know if they're voting Republican, but I said it's time that we have a Wake the Hell Up tour. And you know, I spoke to FEA and said, you guys could make the difference, because you have hundreds of thousands of teachers and you can make a difference. And we can't sugarcoat this stuff anymore. And that's what I think is happening. People deflect, oh, it could have been worse. Like, how much worse? I mean, maybe they line everybody up and shoot us. But it really is very, very bad. They're dismantling public education, dismantling public schools. I think before this term, this governor's term is over, we're going to see schools close. And that's what we fought against. Other districts are already having, Hillsborough is a mess right now. They've had to close schools. Orange County's had to close schools. our district has held off charters as long as they could, and just made sure that the charters were the good charters, the charters that we needed, the charters that fulfilled, you know, what children needed, not just popping up on every street corner. So just get out and tell everybody to become public education voters. And that's all I have.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about Ron DeSantis's financial or political motivation for weeding out public schools?
I believe it's to, first of all, the charter school lobbyists are very powerful.
So they're donators.
So they don't, oh, yeah. And so that's one. And so is this voucher organization is under a man named John Kirtley. John Kirtley is best friends with Jeb Bush. And many years ago, Florida voted against vouchers. Okay, we voted against it. Here's another example of where they turned. And you know how they got around it? Jeb Bush got around it by setting up this third party. And the third party was John Kirtley's organization. Said, oh, no, we're not going to give money to religious schools. We're giving money to Step Up for Children, John Kirtley. So this $2 billion is going to this small organization in Tampa. And they claim they have a waiting list, but for 2 years they haven't been able to produce their waiting list. I don't believe they have a waiting list. Each week you talk to them, it changes. So the motivation is money. It's not for any, I'd say two things. Money, and I have never been a part of the union. I've never been a teacher. I've worked for IBM for many years, so we didn't have unions. But they hate the union. There's no other way. They hate unions. The Republicans in this state hate unions. So it's revenge and it's money. That's what it is.
And the money comes from our property taxes?
Yes. Yes. Now, and I'll add to the question also is, if you look back at the campaign that DeSantis did, he was Trump's guy. Remember the baby and the wife and all of that. Well, look at what Donald has done nationally. He put Betsy DeVos, right? And Betsy DeVos is all about vouchers and all about private funding. So I think it trickles down to DeSantis because, they're kind of married to each other that way. I will tell you, one of the good things that did come out in my district, we have not been able to build schools. If you notice, most of our schools are all out east, but our population has shifted out west. And we haven't been allowed to build schools because as long as you have under-capacity schools, you're not allowed to build new ones. So they told me that where I am out in West Boynton, if we need middle schools, we should have the kids go up to Riviera Beach all the way or down south to East Del Rey. And I gotta tell you, that's a good hour's ride in the mornings, right? So we have a development called the Canyons, and the parents got together and they built Somerset Canyon Charter School, right? Because we couldn't build by Sunset Palms. Well, the good news is we are gonna be building now by Sunset Palms. I'm gonna be expediting that over the next year. But Somerset Canyon is an A-rated charter school, okay? And we have children, they now opened a high school, but a lot of the middle school kids are coming back. And it started when Robert Avosa was here. We started getting phone calls from the parents saying that their children are behind. Well, I recently had a grandfather of a student who was straight A's and gifted, who's returning to Olympic Heights now. She's gonna go to Olympic Heights for high school. But the Spanish she took, 2 years of Spanish, gifted, straight A's, doesn't qualify for her to continue. She can't redo Spanish 2. By state statute, you can't repeat the grade, even though she got an A. But she's so far behind that the only solution is for her to take take French when she goes now to high school. And she can't take algebra in high school because she never got the right math at Somerset Canyon. So we're working with her, but I said, why don't you reach out to the principal there? So she sent me the emails. His answer to her was, well, if you send your granddaughter to us for high school, she won't have these problems of being behind. So my goal now, once we open up the middle school by Sunset Palms, I'm pretty sure that Somerset Canyon will close. They have a beautiful campus for high school and middle school. And so I'd like to see them close, and I'd like us to take that campus and build and use it as a high school, a small high school. However, we're gonna have to buy it back with taxpayer dollars. And it's been built with taxpayer dollars. And so I just want to close by thanking you for supporting the sales tax and thank you for supporting the referendum, because I'm not a believer in tax. I mean, we're being taxed to death, and I appreciate, and I know that, and I feel that from everybody. It broke my heart to have to go out to all of you, but there was no other way. There really was no other way. And right now, my mission on the board, I'm gonna be there for a couple more years, is to work with our CFO, because we're gonna have to find areas to trim. Before we went out for the referendum, I had asked them, what's your backup plan? If we have to share it with charters or if we fail. I was told there was no backup plan. That wasn't acceptable to me then, but we did bring it up, the board last night. We said, okay guys, we need to figure this out. We need to start now. We need to work on legislation, and we also have to do a planning process for what are we gonna do 4 years from now, because we need those people in the school. The mental health counselors are imperative in our schools. Guidance counselors being guidance counselors are imperative. And our school police, our goal is what we're calling 1-2-3 or 2-3 or 3-2-1. We want one in every elementary school, which we have. We're working towards 2 school police officers in every middle school and 3 in every high school, because they also act as mentors. They're very different than the municipal police that you see. They work with the kids. You know, they take them out shopping for school supplies. When my son was young, he went to the school police officer when he was bullied, because being autistic, he looked normal, and he was bullied all the time. So I just want to say thank you for helping us out. We really appreciate it, and thank you, Rita.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think Karen, the question about why they're doing this, you know, the public school system is the last thing in America that they haven't raped and pillaged, you know, and what is it? It's trillions of dollars that they're just dying to get their hands on, you know, and destroy. Okay, I want to say a few things about future meetings and some future events. At our last meeting, Susan mentioned, or was recalling, the postcard meeting that we had, the working meeting, where we all wrote postcards before the midterms. And we thought at the last board meeting that a good idea would be to write to Ron DeSantis at our next meeting and ask him, he's not going to listen, but the more postcards that go out, 23,000 letters, okay, it's really simple. Medicaid expansion, 850,000 Floridians. There are studies that not having health insurance increases your likelihood of dying unnecessarily and prematurely 25 to 40%. Other studies said, one before the Affordable Care Act, said that 40,000 people were dying in America because of it. And at that point, there were 40 million that were uninsured. So that's 1 per 1,000. I mean, you don't need studies to figure out that if you can't afford to go to a doctor, you know, when you show up at the ER, which is what Republicans say we ought to do, and you have stage 4 cancer, you're going to die, and you're going to die because you don't have the money. So the next meeting is it's June 11th, the second Thursday, as always. Also at that meeting, Lori Berman is going to give us a wrap-up of the last legislative session. 2 things. This Saturday, I'll let Bob talk about that in a minute, and the Sunday after that, I guess it's the day after the thing at Old Square. June 19th, we're having a fundraiser for the club at John Ramos's house. And the idea was to honor 3 people. my aunt, David's mother, Marion Kulik, Carol Gevertz, and John. So the details are on the Facebook page. Do we have it here? No, they're on the Palm Beach Democratic site for upcoming events. And then this Saturday, I'll turn over to Bob, where we're going to do a canvassing in a district that really needs to be canvassed. So.
Thanks, Mike. Folks, just one minor correction. Mike had talked about the fundraising event to honor our three great Delray Democrats. I think he mentioned June 19th. It's actually
May 19th. May 19th, of course.
So yes, so it is what, 10 days from today or something?
Yeah, a week from Sunday.
A week from Sunday. Yes, all right. Yeah. Anyway, this is an important, and for those who don't know, in addition to being the vice president of the club, I also have the dubious distinction of being the co-zone leader for what we refer to as Zone 8 in the Palm Beach County Democratic Party, which are the cities of Delray Beach and the town of Gulf Stream, and our 41 precincts therein. So this is a very important year. This is a year of preparation, getting our house in order for what we know is going to be an unbelievably frenetic 2020 as we try to eliminate this country of a cancer who currently resides in the Oval Office, and certainly as we try to bring more common sense through more common sense legislators to Tallahassee, as Rita referred to. So so one of the things that's incredibly important is that we get our house in order this year. And so as part of that, the club, in conjunction with the precinct operations that I co-lead, we are going to begin, and we're going to experiment, frankly, with a practice referred to as deep canvassing, where we are not going to go up to a door and say, here, sign up for voting by mail, or here, elect this candidate, or get to the polls this coming Tuesday. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to engage in conversations. They're going to be long door knocks, hopefully, where we can, a few things going on there. One is to truly get a feeling of the pulse of the voters, here in Delray Beach, and the things that are, of importance to our voters. Because ultimately, as Democratic leaders, what's important to our constituents in Delray should be of importance to us, right? So we're going to find out about that. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to establish relationships, face to face, name to name, handshake to handshake. People who now are going to know who we are, who are willing to give us a chance to demonstrate our trustworthiness and reliability. And if there are things that come up where we can help them, break through issues that they're having, whether it's locally, countywide, statewide, whatever, that we want our neighbors to know that we have their back. We're not asking for a vote. We're simply asking for a little bit of their time and a little bit of conversation. So that's the thought behind that, and we believe that if we can do that enough times during 2019, that when 2020 comes around and we say, all right guys, rubber hits the road, we need your help, we need your vote. We're not those Democrats who only show up every 2 years in the fall and say, I'm here, give me your vote, without a reason why. So that's really the theory behind that. So we are going to begin this practice at a very favorite precinct. It's precinct 7196, which is it's a largely Haitian populated precinct that is immediately south of Lake Ida Road, and is bordered more or less by Barwick Road and pretty close to Congress.
Yeah.
And we hope to knock on a lot of doors this coming Saturday. We want to try to do it in 2 different shifts so that, number one, it's not too tiring for the canvassers, and secondly, so that we have the best opportunity to reach people in their home. So we are going to have our first shift from 10 a.m. to noon, and our second shift from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So, just before it's time to, get ready for dinner, and they've come home from the day's activities, and maybe we can get, 3 or 5 minutes of their time. So, so that's the thought behind it. We haven't yet worked out a meeting place yet, but we will, we'll have that set up literally in a matter of hours, since Saturday's coming pretty quickly. Yeah, yes, Susan.
When Elliot and I canvassed in the Haitian areas in the past, a lot of Haitian people work on Saturday.
Okay.
It's something to consider.
Okay.
I don't know what time they would get home, but,
Right.
so you might consider going a little later. I don't know.
Well, the problem is with the weekend, we chose Saturday rather than Sunday because of church.
Oh, church, yeah. I
And
know.
family dinners
Right.
and stuff, but,
But a lot of the people who were Haitian, when we canvassed, were not home. The kids would be home or
Right.
something, but the parents weren't there.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for the advice. As I say, this is our first time out, and we hope to do this many times throughout the year. We'll learn things like that. We'll learn, how to fine tune our approach, our timing, and everything else. But we, the main thing is, 2 important takeaways is, one, that the club and the party apparatus, are working together in lockstep to, is there a question? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, if you are going out into the neighborhood,
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you have an interpreter, someone could speak Brill. You have someone else, because if you do not have anyone, you just walk it in vain.
I've actually.
You have someone?
No, I have canvassed. In fact, Bob didn't mention it. We're divided into precinct captain, or precinct leaders. That happens to be my precinct there. So I've been canvassing there for the last 3 years. And most of the people that I encountered, I could speak English with. I speak some French. I don't think it's going to help me.
None unless you come next door to my next door neighbor. He speak about 3 languages, including French. But most of the time, I know them. I live in the vicinity.
Yes.
Because I live in Sudan. We have 40 homes in Sudan, and only I think it's like 3 of us about 4 of us is American. All the rest of them is Haitian people, whom I love dearly. I don't want nobody to say anything bad about that one of them. But the thing is that once, I hate to phrase it this way, but I'm gonna phrase it the way that it's honest.
Yes, ma'am.
Once, if you bring a Haitian person that speak Creole that is black, you will get further
Yeah, I'm sure.
than
That's
you
right.
being white.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna put it out there.
Yeah, we're hoping to pick some up, actually.
Yeah, I'm just saying now, but I'm just saying, it's not trying to be prejudiced anything.
No, ma'am.
But
No.
I know what works and what doesn't work. Because most of them come to my house, mommy call the police, mommy do this, mommy do that, mommy call the mayor, mommy do, and I'm studying calling all these people, the city council, mayor, I'm studying doing it for them. But I said, why can't you do it? Why can't, no, me don't wanna do it, you do it. And we don't know what reason, I do not ask, it's none of my business. My job is to do what they ask me to do. So that's what I'm saying, that you have to use strategy in order to get something done.
Okay. No, thank you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
I just think high school kids, Haitian kids.
Yeah,
Take
we
your
have
kid
to
with
find
you.
it.
Nancy, ask Nancy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. Right, right. Mhm, mhm. Okay, so, if any of you feel like, if you're planning on going for a walk on Saturday anyway, I got a place for you to walk. So, after the meeting, come talk to Mike, come talk to me, get your contact, and we will let you know magically between now and Saturday where to meet up with us. But, you have,
I was saying, Clint Stryker and I worked that neighborhood. Those people were fired up.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I love that neighborhood.
thank you, Charlie, thank you. All right, well, hope to see some of you on Saturday morning.
And just following up on that, the education is so important. I mean, when Bob was saying that, not just asking for the vote, but having people be fired up. Not everyone is fired up. A lot of people are kind of beaten down. We're trying with the newsletter to get this out into the community. I mean, and to get it out, I mean, we print up a lot of these, and they end up getting filed. We've got a bunch out there now. If people will just grab some on your way out and hand them out, we need to build up this club. We should have a lot more people, and it's hard. Who wants to come out at night? We're all tired, and one of the things that I like to do, in addition to the canvassing, is to get out on the streets, and be seen. Move On is with a banner, we're not going to do it because I think it'll turn people off, but I would like to have a banner that says Republicans are killing you, or Republicans are killing us, and then just hand out the sheets. Yeah, they are. People are getting shot in school, and people are dying because they don't have health care. But we don't have to say it in that way. But people need, when Rita was talking about 55% or 56% of teachers are Republicans, how long are you going to vote against it's no longer voting against your economic interests, it's voting against your life. They don't know that, or it's more important to them, their racism, outweighs their lives. Then they don't think about it. So if there are people that would like to get out on the street with us, I'd like to hear from you. So I think, any comments, any ideas?
One question. So when we were doing some of the Haitian outreach last year, Nancy came up with a really good flyer that I think I still have in my email. It was one side English, the other side Creole. I'm wondering if maybe we should leave them with that if we want to print enough copies of that.
We can certainly try to, we can definitely do that.
It was basically all the issues that Democrats stand for.
Mm-hmm.
Education, healthcare are the top two, according to Nancy. That's two of the biggest reasons they come here from Hades is education for their kids and healthcare. And we have all of the issues that we stand for.
Those flyers, I think they're still at the Job Street.
We have a few, and we will need to print, we'll need to print up more, but we have them, we have them on our computer at John Road, so.
Might be something to leave them with,
Sure.
or leave at their door for now.
Absolutely. absolutely.
Yeah, we did that the last time we canvassed there. We had those and we left them in the doors. So, any other comments, questions,
I just
ideas?
want to say one more thing about the charter schools. Can we not get a citizens amendment to ban them? Have we had that before? Can we have a citizens amendment?
To ban charter schools, I don't think we would. I mean, we're looking at a bunch of different things. I know Frank, I saw that Frank posted something on our board chair. Well, our board chair did post something on Facebook. Did you see about, no, we posted something about that maybe, something about returning control to the school districts. Because that's the big thing. We need the control. Right now, if we say no to a charter school, if they meet all the criteria, we have to say yes. I should probably stand up saying yes.
But there are some states.
But there are, but maybe if we can get control, but we can certainly, Rita can bring that up. And
California just did it.
because if, we can, it doesn't matter, even if the bills fail year after year, like there's been a bill every year to raise the teacher's salary to the average starting salary of the rest of the nation. And it fails every year, but you know what? We gotta keep doing it. We gotta keep hammering them. The one hope I do have is we are in a lawsuit right now over the referendum. We were sued by some charter schools for not sharing the money. I'm hoping because the legislature has now addressed it that those lawsuits will be gone. They probably will have to go away, so that will be a good thing. But, it's definitely something we can talk about as a board also. I don't know that it would get very far because the legislature, so many of them are aligning their pockets with charter school money. So, I think there's definitely a conflict of interest when you have, but they're happy with it.
And the other thing with the citizen, or, we have the petitions out now for a variety of things. I don't know how many people saw it. Nancy Chanine had a viewpoints piece in the Palm Beach Post about the fact that the legislature is trying to up the percentage from 60% for passing a citizen's amendment to 2/3. There's one other state in the country that does that, and it's another example of Republicans hating democracy.
I do think there's one concern I would have, though, as I think about the whole process of a citizens amendment to ban charter schools, is there are some good charter schools. You have the School for Autism and everybody else, which serves children with disabilities. We have 2 conversion charter schools that were part of us that converted, South Tech Academy being one of them, which is all great vocational programs. They're A-rated. They work with us. They actually lease the facilities from us. They're not your typical charter school, but they're nonprofit. Tucson Louverture, which originally was serving most of the Haitian population, now it's expanded. They're in financial trouble every year, but they do a fabulous job. They're now in a space, in a strip mall where they have space with, and NC's actually on their board, and so is Mac Bernard. So there are good, we have to find a way to get rid of that for-profit. For-profit, maybe. So we'd have to be anti-for-profit.
California did it, Mexico did it this year.
That would be great.
One of the concerns that I heard from somebody at one point about, even with for-profit, having to make sure that it's not one of the schools where the person who owns the construction company has a nonprofit that they're bidding out their own contracts.
Absolutely, and that's what happened with Eagle Arts.
Get real specific.
You're absolutely, we're gonna have to dig deep, and that's a great point, because, and then you look at what happened at Eagle Arts, which they've gone bankrupt, we had closed them down and everything, but the head of that school, he was outsourcing to all these other companies, everything that he did. So they're taking it, all in all different directions, but that's a very good point, we're gonna have to be very, but maybe we should bring that up in the discussion that we have with the school board on what the outcome is about, and we can talk about it.
If anything, it might slow some things down.
Right.
Because we need to make a bold move.
And I think that, this election, I'm hopeful, is going to bring out a lot of young people, a lot of progressives that are going to come out and vote. And if we can get them on board also to support these types of things, because the youth are really going to be our hope for the future. Absolutely. I mean, people took it for granted, and there was a lot of bad feelings in the last election. Well, we all saw what can happen, and we don't want that to happen again. So we need these kids.
I learned in 1980, I voted for Barry Collins. I don't know how many people remember him, because I thought, how much worse could Reagan be than Carter? And I got educated, and when 2000 came around, and I was in New York and I had a free vote, I wouldn't vote for Ralph Nader, who was head and shoulders above Gore, but I would not give him my vote because I was so angry that he did what he did. And I know people who were 20 years younger than me that voted for Nader, and they learned, so it's a learning process.
It's gotta be a fair primary.
Yup.
I hope so. We need one.
Fair primary.
Well, but the indivisible pledge is just great. I mean, it's
Anyone else have any more forms? And does anybody want to take some with them?
I'll take them. And my wife, I can get a bunch.
Hey, folks, attention, please.
Yeah, well,
Hey, excuse me.
We also have a Facebook, yeah.
Everybody, hello?
There's something about another school that, Carter, High School, that used to be Carter High School. There's a whole movement of trying to bring that school back, for the African American group, and to have that school, open up and be, a national place, and also, educate kids. There's a whole group that is going to be voting on that on June 5th, which is Wednesday in Del Rey. Right, and, I know they came to All People's Day, they had people signing their things, and it's a wonderful situation because there is a school there, they can revamp it, the people really need to have, access to that kind of school. So if people are gonna go, I unfortunately can't go, I have a board meeting that day, but if you can go, I think it's at 6 o'clock, and support that, I think that they would really appreciate it.
Send me email me the details and I'll put it up on our Facebook page.
Yeah, I think you're on my.
Yeah, sure.
On my, I'm gonna be sending that out. I have it to.
Oh, okay, all right, so I'll get it.
So really, so folks, and much to underscore what Mike was talking about, and certainly what Karen and Rita was talking about, is that, we come here every month and we listen to, wonderful speakers who, educate us to the latest issues and the latest opportunities and so on. And then we go home and we wait until the next month's meeting. Well.
Sorry.
And I mean, frankly, that's kind of the way, we've been operating. That's the way a lot of us Palm Beach Democrats operate. And it's not enough, guys. It's not enough. There's not a single one among us who cannot do more besides come to a monthly meeting and listen to great speakers. It is incumbent upon each of us to do what we can within our own constraints to take action. Whether that action is making a phone call, that action is writing a postcard, that action is joining us on a canvassing event, that action is talking to the neighbors to say, hey, there's this great club that meets on the second Thursday of every month. You ought to, go listen to what goes on over there and join us. This has to be a movement, and I mean literally movement, moving, moving, okay? Moving the hand to write that postcard, moving the mouth on that phone call, moving the feet on that canvas. Every one of us can do more than what we're doing right now. Time is of the essence. The situation could not be more desperate, whether on the state level or on the national level. And for many of us who have children, have grandchildren, who have grandchildren on the way, we owe it to them. Right? We owe it to them to do everything in our part to leave this world in a better place than it was when we entered it. So, in the name of my future grandson, in the name of all your future and current children, grandchildren, etc., let's get to work, okay? And so, the next meeting, we're going to get to work right here in this place. So I expect to see every one of you here and bring 3 friends with you.
That's right, yeah.